Excellencies, distinguished delegates, welcome back to the afternoon meeting of the third Ministerial Conference on Civil Registration and Vital Statistics in Asia and the Pacific. It is my great pleasure to take over the role of chair this afternoon. We will now proceed with Agenda Item 3, Building Resilient and Inclusive Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Systems in Support of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as indicated in the documents, Building Resilient Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Systems, ESCAP/MCCRVS/2025/4, and ensuring that everyone is in the picture through inclusive civil registration and vital statistics systems, ESCAP/MCCRVS/2025/5. To provide an introduction to this agenda item, may I invite Ms. Amen Abevwa, Regional Executive Director of Child Rights Coalition, the CRC Asia, to present Agenda Item 3. Ms. Abevwa, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think there are much less people this afternoon than there were this morning, but I'm sure you're the ones who make the CRVS work. So, good afternoon. So, it's my pleasure to introduce this section of the discussion. And I would like to welcome you to this session on building resilient and inclusive civil registration and vital statistics systems in support of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So our discussion will be guided by two key background documents. First one is Building Resilient Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Systems. And the second one is ensuring that everyone is in the picture through inclusive civil registration and vital statistics systems. These papers remind us that CRVS systems are far more than technical mechanisms for recording births and deaths. They are instruments of visibility, equity, and empowerment. When every person is counted, their existence is acknowledged, their rights protected, and their needs made visible. But to achieve this, CRVS systems must be both resilient, that means able to withstand shocks, and inclusive, able to reach everyone. Together, these principles are essential to ensuring that CRVS systems can respond to today's challenges and adapt to those of the future. How do we define resilience and inclusion? To truly deliver on their promise, CRVS systems must embrace two key principles, resilience and inclusion. Resilience means these systems can continue functioning during crises, whether pandemics, climate change emergencies, natural disasters, or conflict, safeguarding their essential role in protecting identity and ensuring access to services. Inclusion means no one is left behind, not the poor, not migrants, not remote communities, and those historically marginalized. And for me, especially the children, we must make sure that they are included. While these are concepts that are sometimes treated separately for practical reasons, they are fundamentally interconnected. A resilient system that does not reach everyone is not fully effective, and an inclusive system that cannot withstand disruption is not sustainable. Together, resilience and inclusion form the backbone of the CRVS systems that can serve both the present and the future generations and support sustainable development. The COVID-19 pandemic treated CRVS systems across the region like never before. Offices were shut down, Frontline staff were diverted, and essential services delayed or suspended. At the same time, the crisis catalyzed innovation. Countries introduced mobile registration teams, digital platforms for remote certification, and legal amendments to allow delayed or simplified registration. These responses underscored the importance of flexibility, preparedness, and strong coordination across sectors. They also showed how digital tools and inclusive outreach could make systems more agile and accessible. The challenge now is to ensure that these adaptive practices are not temporary fixes, but are institutionalized as part of the standard CRVS operations, making systems more resilient for the future. The dimensions of resilience. The first background paper, Building Resilient Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Systems in Asia and the Pacific, identifies five essential dimensions of resilience that CRVS systems must strengthen. First, legal frameworks that are adaptable and responsive to emergencies. Second, integration with health systems and national digital ID infrastructure. Third, decentralized capacity to deliver services at the local level. Fourth, interoperable and secure data systems that enable rapid coordination. And finally, contingency planning and risk mitigation strategies across agencies. These components equip CRVS systems to respond swiftly to disruptions while protecting rights and continuity of service. Strengthening resilience means building systems that not only survive crisis but emerge stronger and more responsive to people's needs. The second background paper, Ensuring Inclusive Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Systems in Asia and the Pacific, reminds us that resilience alone is not enough. Inclusion remains a critical and unfinished agenda. Millions of people across our region still go unregistered, particularly among ethnic minorities, migrants, displaced people, stateless people, those living in remote areas, people living with disabilities, and the poorest households. These gaps are not coincidental. They are rooted in the legal, social, and geographic barriers that prevent access to services. Exclusion from CRV systems can lead to exclusion from basic rights and public services. Unless these inequalities are addressed head on, no CRVS system, no matter how technologically advanced, can truly claim to be universally effective. And I must say that children are most especially impacted by not having these basic documents. Achieving inclusion requires practical, targeted action. Countries need to take services to the people through community-based registration and mobile outreach. Laws must be reformed to eliminate discriminatory provisions that prevent certain groups from registering. Health workers, civil society actors, and local leaders must be empowered as partners in extending registration to the hardest to reach, and disaggregated data must be collected and used to identify who is being left behind and to hold systems accountable. These are not abstract ideals. Across Asia and the Pacific, countries have already begun to implement these approaches with great success, showing that inclusion is possible with the right combination of, I suppose this is political will, strategy, and collaboration. Across Asia and the Pacific, there are already many encouraging examples that show what is possible when resilience and inclusion are prioritized. In Bangladesh, birth notification has been integrated into the health sector, using frontline health workers to trigger timely registration. In Samoa, mobile registration teams travel to remote islands, ensuring that distance is not a barrier to access. In the Philippines, CRVS systems are linked with social protection programs, ensuring that registration serves as a gateway to benefits. These country experiences highlight the power of tailored solutions. While no one size fits all model exists, these efforts demonstrate that systems can be built to work for everyone, everywhere, when grounded in innovation and local needs. Equity and inclusion must be translated into action. This means identifying and breaking down the barriers that prevent individuals and groups from accessing registration services. Gender inequality, legal discrimination, geographic remoteness, and socioeconomic marginalization all play a role. That's why we must work directly with affected communities, design services that reflect their lived realities, and build trust through collaboration with civil society. Conducting inequality assessments is essential. These help us to understand which groups are underserved and why. They guide policy reforms and ensure that resources are allocated fairly. Equity is not just a principle, it is a tool to target interventions and track progress. Only by embedding it in practice can we truly leave no one behind. We have made considerable progress, but the road ahead demands renewed commitment. As we reach the end of the Asia and the Pacific CRVS decade and look to its extension, we have a unique opportunity to consolidate lessons learned and build even stronger foundations. Resilience and inclusion must be more than an aspiration. They must be embedded in system design, implementation, and monitoring. This means investing in technology, but also in people and partnerships. It means sharing what works, scaling innovations, and continuously learning from experience. Governments must lead, but they cannot do it alone. Collaboration with civil society, development partners, and communities is key. Together, we can build CRVS systems that are not only fit for purpose today, but ready to serve the needs of future generations. Let us ensure that every life is counted, every person recognized, and that our CRVS systems are resilient and inclusive enough to meet the needs of tomorrow. Resilience enables CRVS systems to endure and to adapt during times of disruption, protecting continuity and trust. Inclusion ensures that no one is overlooked, regardless of location, status, or circumstance. These are not optional features. They are the very foundations of effective and equitable governance. As we move forward, let us reaffirm our shared responsibility to build systems that reflect the dignity of every individual and safeguard the future of every society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Abueva. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the consideration of this agenda item will include a panel discussion on building resilient civil registration and vital statistics systems in an era of crisis. This panel aims to promote cross-country learning by bringing together national authorities and experts to share insights on maintaining civil registration and vital statistics services during and after crises. The discussion will focus on building resilient systems, addressing post-disaster challenges, and exploring innovative solutions to protect CRVS functions. The panel will include speakers from World Vision International, the Maldives, New Zealand, and Turkey, and will be moderated by Mr. Bakshar Mishra, Child Protection Specialist, Global Technical Lead on CRVS and Legal Identity from UNICEF. Introductory remarks will be provided by Ms. Rachel Bevan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to this important panel discussion on building resilient civil registration and vital statistics systems in an era of crisis. It's my pleasure to make some short opening remarks before I hand over to our moderator for this panel. So we started this ministerial conference by celebrating the progress made during the CRVS decade. Across the region, we've seen a significant increase in the registration of vital events and a clear sign of collective effort and commitment. But while our CRVS systems are stronger than they were 10 years ago, this progress remains fragile. Our systems remain vulnerable to shocks, crises, disasters, displacement, and to challenges we may not yet anticipate. The COVID-19 pandemic made these vulnerabilities starkly visible. CRVS systems were disrupted, registrations delayed, and many people, particularly the most vulnerable, lost access to their legal identity, excluding them from essential public services and protections. This experience underscored a vital truth. Resilient CRVS systems are not just necessary, they are life-saving. In times of crisis, these systems enable rapid response, recovery, and informed decision-making. Data from CRVS on mortality, causes of death, and population demographics is essential for managing public health and detecting emerging threats. In response to the pandemic, many countries accelerated digital transformation, introducing more agile, interoperable, and accessible systems, and these innovations have made CRVS systems more capable of withstanding future shocks. As we face the growing risks of public health emergencies, climate change, displacement, particularly in a region as disaster-prone as ours, resilience has never been more urgent. But resilience is more than recovery. It's about designing systems that can adapt, absorb shocks, and continue functioning even in the most difficult circumstances. This includes institutional flexibility, having inclusive digital infrastructure, and also legal recognition that CRVS systems are an essential service, and also having people-centered design. And it's especially about inclusivity, ensuring that the displaced, the stateless, and those in remote areas are not left behind when crises strike. These are the populations most in need of registration services, yet often the first to lose that access. And across Asia and the Pacific, we've seen really promising examples of mobile registration units, digital tools, and legal reforms that prioritize CRVS continuity. And that's why ESCAP has made resilience a key theme in this next phase of the CRVS decade, because only resilient systems can ensure that every birth and death is counted, every person's recognized, and every community served, even in the most uncertain times. But to moderate the panel discussion today, I'm really pleased that we've got Bhaskar Mishra. Is a CRVS and legal identity specialist with UNICEF New York. He previously served as Deputy Registrar General in India and then with UNICEF Tanzania, where he supported efforts to scale up birth and death registration. And Bhaskar is going to be our moderator for this panel discussion this afternoon. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for setting the context so well. Your remarks have not only reminded us of how far we have come during the CRBS decade, but also of the urgent work that lies ahead. 2 points you raised particularly resonate as we begin this discussion. First, the idea that resilience is not just about recovery, but about continuity, about designing CRBS systems that can adapt and function even in the face of crisis. And second, your emphasis on inclusivity, that resilience must mean reaching the most vulnerable, the displaced, the stateless, and those in remote and underserved areas. These are not abstract principles. They are the difference between being counted or invisible, between accessing essential services or being left out, especially in time of crisis. Thank you again. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this important session on resilient CRBS systems. While CRBS systems often operate in the background when disaster strikes, they become frontline tools that shape relief efforts, safeguard legal identity, and provide essential population data. Today, we are joined by distinguished panelists representing 3 diverse contexts: the Maldives, New Zealand, and Turkey, each offering powerful lessons in resilience. We will also benefit from the on-the-ground experiences and learnings from World Vision International. Our panelists represent governments that have not only responded to crisis, but also adopted and transformed their CRBS systems. The Maldives brings a model of island-based climate-conscious CRBS integration, emphasizing mobility and coordination across atolls. New Zealand demonstrates how long-term investment in digital infrastructure enables real-time adaptability during lockdowns and emergencies. Turkey's experience underlines the importance of strong inter-ministerial coordination and contingency planning for large-scale disasters. Yet common threads bind these efforts. And what are they? Uninterrupted services, the need for interoperability with identity systems, data protection, mobile access, and community trust in the system, especially in the times of distress. World Vision International has been responding to hundreds of emergencies around the world since the 1950s, and I liked how they described themselves on their website. Before, during, and after emergencies, we are there. Before joining UNICEF, as Rachel mentioned, I worked as Deputy Registrar General CRBS India. I joined this position in 2007, 3 years after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. This was an unprecedented disaster, both in terms of its impact and lessons learned. India lost over 10,000 lives and nearly 6,000 went missing. It became a turning point, not just for disaster preparedness, but also for how India viewed CRBS and its role in humanitarian crises. Having personally dealt with delayed registration cases and missing persons from the 2004 tsunami and 6 additional major disasters that occurred between 2007 and 2012, I cannot overstate the importance of a resilient CRBS system. The key is to have a CRBS system with a human face, one that is sensitive and responsive to these realities. The more developed civil registration systems are in non-humanitarian contexts, the more resilient and prepared they will be to withstand humanitarian situations. With this, it's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have Dr. Ibrahim Wahed, who is the project manager for the Digital Maldives for Adaptation, Decentralization, and Diversification Project at the Ministry of Homeland Security and Technology. Mr. Russell Burnett, Registrar General Births, Deaths, and Marriages, New Zealand Department of Internal Affairs. Mr. Ibrahim Tasyapan, Governor, Director General of Civil Registration and Citizenship, Turkey. And Mr. Dipesh Paul Thakur, Global Director for Local to Global Advocacy and Impact, World Vision International. Welcome, everyone. We will have 2 rounds of panel discussions, followed by a Q&A session, and then we'll conclude with some final observations. So, let me start with you, Mr. Ibrahim Wahed. How has your CRBS system responded to recent shocks? And what lessons have been learned in terms of resilience and service continuity? In particular, I'm very keen to know how do you manage geographical challenges in the Maldives? Over to you, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very good afternoon and assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the question. The Maldives civil registration and vital static system has demonstrated both strengths and areas of improvement for responding recent shocks such as the COVID-19. At that time, there's no country prepared for this kind of pandemic. In the Maldives, we embrace into an alternative method for the application and the process of civil registration of vital statistics through email systems. So the citizens, they can actually submit the applications through email for the ID, national ID card, as well as birth certificate processing. I think, and also it's not only COVID-19, because there were, recent hazards like we have natural hazards like flood and so sea swell. Due to that also, there were some lost identification documents, which has in place really responded well the civil registration system. I think in terms of the respond, that's how it has been done. And also during COVID-19, the Maldives was able to establish vaccine management portal, which is also fully digitalized, and also able to issue the COVID-19 vaccine certificates to the citizens. They don't have to in-person present, so it was fully digitalized. In terms of lessons that we have learned, of course, the importance of collaboration with different government agencies during a disaster, during a pandemic, that's what we have learned. As a result, the collaboration has resulted us to develop a more resilient CRVS system, which is fully digitalized, and we call this system as GEMON. It's a digital platform where every island council will be able to register, and also the city councils. So I think it was an opportunity as well to build resilience around the CR system. So I think that's my take on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for highlighting your strengths and areas of improvement and special measures taken during COVID-19 and during recent floods where a lot of records were lost. So collaboration is the key forward. Thank you very much. Mr. Russell Burnett, now it's your time, sir.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I think New Zealand, we're down the bottom end of the South Pacific. We thought we were prepared for all emergencies. We live on the ring of fire, so we have earthquakes and other such natural disasters on a regular basis. I think we thought we were prepared for COVID. We weren't. I think like most countries, we had to learn fast, we had to innovate, we had to rely on previously developed tools and processes that we'd undertaken. One of the first things we did, and I think you'll hear this from most panelists, was have us designated as an essential service. which I think probably surprised our government that we were an essential service. It wasn't until, like many countries, we had to engage with support payments for workers who were unemployed quickly, for businesses which were struggling to operate in a COVID environment. So our largest support agencies, our social development agency, required really quick processes to identify people and to assure that they were entitled to the appropriate payments that were being made by our government. And they relied effectively on the foundational information that we held. And I think that our capacity to engage, to interrogate and to check the identity of those people was immense value to our nation as we worked through this. One of the other things I think we learnt through this is relationships really mattered. And in the Pacific, many of our Pacific cousins, we have Indigenous communities who have a real interest in the ownership and resilience of data that is held on their behalf by the government. Sometimes it's not with the same outcomes. Our government and Māori, in our case, our Indigenous nation, want to engage with each other, but we want to have a relationship and talk to each other. So much of what we did in resilience is beyond technology. It is actually about relationships and people, which we think is really, really important. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. COVID was a reality check for all of us, not only for New Zealand. All of us were surprised. And I read somewhere that digitalization of services was a critical factor in your case. And I completely agree that relationship is the way forward. So, Mr. Ibrahim Tasyapan, sir, it's your turn.
Thank you, dear moderator, distinguished guests, and I am pleased to share our knowledge and experience with you at panel held on the occasion of the third Ministerial Conference on Civil Registration and Vital Statistics in Asia at the public organization but ESCAP, and offer my regards on behalf of my country. As you know, on February 6, 2023, two earthquakes measuring 7.7 and 7.6 scale struck Pazarcık, affected 11 provinces. Although some of our civil registry offices in the earthquake zone forms the backbone of the digital public infrastructure in our country, and our backbone of the digital public infrastructure in our country, and our integration services that support relevant institutions. The Central Civil Registration Administration System, MERNIS, has a structure that allows civil registry records to be kept in a centralized manner, and changes to this information to be updated instantly by units across the country and to be shared securely over a network. Designed in the 1980s, after intensive work between 1998 and 1999, the civil registry records of more than 122 million people kept on paper were transferred to digital civil registry records in MERNIS, along with all the information they contained. With the transfer of records to a digital format, every person was given a Republic of Turkey identification number in 2001, and since 2004, the identity sharing systems has enabled our citizens to carry out their transaction at any civil registry office. For a mission and other institution anywhere in our country, all the civil registry records have begun to be kept digitally. We continue to keep and preserve hard copies of civil registry records as they represent the memory of country. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. The role that your central civil registration system played was praiseworthy. It acted as the backbone, and the mobile registration trucks with satellite connection really played a very, very important role in the recovery process. So with this, I will go to Dipesh Paul Tucker. Given World Vision International's strong implementation footprints in more than 25 countries in Asia and the Pacific, how do countries generally respond during emergencies?
Sure.
And what are the top 3 learnings in terms of resilience and service continuity that you would recommend? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar. And before I jump into the topic, let me just read a quote from the 2021 report, Getting Children and Youth in the Picture. And it says that no registration equals no protection. Without birth documents, children and youth are exposed to abuse and trafficking. Many marry without legal protection and have children who cannot be recognized since marriage documents are required for birth registration. And whenever you are associated with a topic and being an advocate, you become passionate when you really encounter a real scenario. So for me, it was, I'm from Nepal, but I used to work for Asia Pacific before taking the global role. And while visiting an eastern part of Nepal, my colleague from Nepal would agree that many girls are married cross-border, and despite their age being 12, 13, and 14, the parents say that they are like adult, they're 17, 18, or 19, just because of the very simple fact that they don't have birth registration. And that drew my curiosity as well. And during the earthquake in Nepal, I was there helping with the response as well. After around 3 or 4 days, there was whole news about a lot of children being trafficked, and we had to really take precautionary measures, specifically working with interagency groups, interagency standing committee for the measures as well. I would not go into the details of how countries respond because they have structured way of countries responding, but World Vision, in a way, we respond in a manner in which we have a declaration period, we have a surge capacity, and we respond to disaster in 24 to 72 hours. I would be more emphasizing on the learning part, Bhaskar. And for the first learning for me as an organization is that before the disaster hits, though it be in urban setting or community setting, the community is there, isn't it? So how really building the resilient and the robust system in the community is important for us as an organization. We are a sponsorship-based organization. We have 3 million children who are into a sponsorship program across the world, 1.5 in Asia Pacific. And while we are trying to engage with community, we ensure that the children are getting benefits from the public services. And most importantly, they are registered. Around 98% of children who are there in our programs are registered. And if they are not registered, we try to make provisions to see that how we work with the government. So really trying to see that we rely on that robust community mechanism is an important learning for me as the natural disaster, man-made or others, happen. The second thing which I have realized is mobile and digital solution are indispensable. For example, when we are responding to situations of crisis in Vanuatu and Bangladesh, in instance, World Vision provided mobile birth registration and a temporary ID alongside the government because they had lost their ID. And that simple act enabled the communities and children to access provisions and services as well. And I would mention about the side event in which young people talked just in the afternoon. And a distinguished delegate from Kazakhstan mentioned about a harsh condition in Kazakhstan. And the system is so robust that once a woman is delivering the baby, they receive an ID in a SMS, So really trying to see how you build up that robust system would be important. And last but not the least, I would say is resilience is anchored in legal identity and as protection. When children do not have documentation, they face heightened crisis. I illustrated about the trafficking, child labor, so forth and so on. So really trying to see that how CRVS is embedded into the continuity system when at the local level, at the district level, at the national level, you have the disaster risk reduction mechanism, isn't it? You really try to plot out which could be the potential disasters, so forth and so on. And that's where embedding the CRVS would be important. And that's what the 3 learning I wanted to cite.
No, I think, thank you very much for raising these points. For the benefit of everyone, let me reiterate: robust community mechanism, mobile and digital solutions, and resilience has to be embedded in legal identity. So with this, we will go to a follow-up question. What provisions are in place to ensure the continuity of civil registration services during and after disasters? And we can start with Turkey. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Before MERN's systems, Turkey also experienced problems such as damage to paper records due to natural disasters such as earthquakes, fires, and floods, and difficulties in recreating civil registry records in the affected areas. For these reasons, our work continuity center has been put into operation in order to ensure the continuous and backup of systems, protects civil registry data against natural disaster and extraordinary circumstances, and enable all civil registry services conducted electronically to continue without interruptions. In addition, with our civil registry digital archive projects, developed to preserve and restore documents in the civil registry archives. One of the largest archives in Turkey, all supporting documents in the civil registry have been scanned and transferred to the digital archive. In addition, our damaged documents and records are being restored and preserved. Data related to civil registry records in the Central Civil Registration Administration System are backed up by our work continuity center and stored electronically for uninterrupted services 24/7. Civil registry records kept on paper and all related documents are stored together with their backups in our civil registry digital archive projects. This structure ensures that civil registry services are provided without interruptions and that civil registry records are not damaged in the event of disasters and emergencies. Thank you.
Digital archiving and digital connections really has helped Turkey in terms of providing 24/7 services. New Zealand, we can go to you, sir. And anything about civil defense emergency management framework and the 4 Rs, reduction, readiness, response, and recovery, I read it somewhere. Over to you.
Thank you. So in preparation for crises and emergencies, we've digitized all our records. So our oldest record goes back to, I think, 1848, which is not too bad. We have portable access to our system, so in a crisis, our staff can be deployed outside our core offices. We have spent a lot of time with our people cross-skilling them so they understand multiple parts of the product suite that we deliver, and we've standardized that across all of our offices so that if an office was affected by earthquake, fire, whatever, we can replicate in each of those offices, same technology. So we spend a lot of time on cross-skilling our staff, etc., and having the same tech in all of our offices. I apologise. And we spend a lot of time on business continuity plans and disaster recovery plans. So we're thinking about it quite actively. We take a view of people, processing, technology, and people are probably the most important part of that. So our staff become the core in an emergency because they're the ones facing the customers who are at need. So we spend a lot of time on that.
Excellent. So business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, and cross-skilling really helped you. So, Ibrahim, it's your turn. And what is the concept of pre-designated safe zones? I read somewhere that in Maldives you have pre-designated safe zones to host services if island offices are affected.
Yeah, there are these. This has been done by the National Disaster Management Authority under their mandate. The safe zones has been identified in most of the islands. However, this has not been something that they have exercised. So I'm not sure whether, because we have never had this during the tsunami in 2020. 2004. So later on, that very recently, this has been done. And then with regard to the question, the provisions of the continuity of the CRO system is whether we have any provisions in the continuity. I think this provision has been included in the National Emergency Operation Plan. And then this responsibility is given to the National Center for Information Technology to recover any loss of data or continuity of any IT system or a database in the government agencies. So, however, the National Center for Information Technology itself is having some limitations. They have, the National Data Center is not having a DER, and also the CRVS system, we define it in two different systems we have in silos, which is operated. One is at the Department of National Registration, and the other one is at the National Center for Information Technology, which we call GAMON. So this system is the system we used to register birth and death. However, the central system is at the Department of National Registration. So from in the plan, the Digital Modis project, we have allocated around $3 million for the new CRVS ID system, which will be addressing all this, the continuity, the availability, accessibility, as well as the reliability of the system will be guaranteed under this project. We are planning to roll out this in the next 2 years.
So the new CRBS ID system will take care of all these problems. All right, Dipesh, you have just heard about the provisions in place in the 3 countries. Based on your experience, what provisions are most essential to ensure the uninterrupted availability of CR services during and after disasters?
Thank you. Fantastic examples from Turkey, New Zealand, and Maldives. And from World Vision's experience working in more than 15 countries in Asia Pacific, both in fragile and disaster prone, what we have seen is that continuity of civil registration services depend not only in strong system, but how adaptive, inclusive, and community rooted those systems are, and when in emergencies strike. And our friend from New Zealand talked about the importance of people in that aspect. For me, where I come from, and as we started this discussion, Amihan also mentioned about the importance of constituency. And for me, it's very important that in what is critical in midst of chaos is a vulnerable group, and that is children, and how they are visible to the system in these categories and how their rights are upheld is important. And a question to ask is, despite all these progresses, still we have 150 million children who are unregistered, 65 million in Asia Pacific, something for us to really come together, discuss, and when we have the next ministerial meeting, maybe this numbers goes down drastically with the collaborative learning efforts that we have. But when it comes to the 3 learning pre-post disaster or emergency situation, for me the first is countries should establish pre-authorized emergency protocol for civic registration, which is flexible, which is provisional for registration, which is adaptive, and which can issue temporary identities as such. For example, when we're working in Bangladesh and Myanmar, when the emergency situations hit, we're able to give temporary certificates or identity for the children, which help them get benefits for health and education and nutrition services as well. The second is digital and mobile enabled registration platform, which is also functional offline, and the children's group also mentioned that this earlier, which has a cloud backup, and you said, when New Zealand colleagues said about the whole backup system. So that would be also important. And again, in Sri Lanka and Indonesia, when the natural disaster, particularly the flood hit, we're able to retrieve that information to see that how the services were provided. And again, Bhaskar, I go back to what I said earlier, in a sense, we must strengthen and leverage the community-based system. You know, disaster hit, we know in certain contexts, in certain places, the disaster will hit. So how the community-based approaches for us, it's a sponsorship program in which the communities, the members of the communities, the volunteers are helped, equipped to see that the children's information and the information around the civic registration and vital statistics are mentioned. And we've seen this happening by the volunteers in Vanuatu in terms of how they are supporting the whole civil registration system as well. So in summary, resilient CRVS system during and after disaster rely on flexibility that we have, digital innovation, and community partnership. You know, there must be an intentionality to embed these issues again, and I say, is into the national disaster preparedness strategies, the local disaster preparedness strategies, so that when the disaster happens, we are already equipped what to know, where to go.
Thank you very much. You have summed it up so well, so I don't need to add anything. So now we will move to round 2, which consists of 3 questions and focuses on the provision for the reissuance of lost or damaged civil documents, contingency plans for damaged or destroyed registration offices and infrastructure, and the use of CRVS data in national emergency planning, post-disaster assessment and recovery. So, are there streamlined or emergency procedures for the reissuance of lost or damaged civil documents for individuals affected by crisis, emergencies, or disasters? New Zealand, you can take this question first. Can they apply online? Is there any fee in your case? Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, we've got probably 98%, I think, of all of our civil registry vital events online, which we're very proud of. We spent a lot of time working on that. That does leave 2% that we still have to work on, and so that's still a challenge for us as a country, which I think it is for everybody. We work less closely with our national emergency management agencies than we do with our major delivery agencies, so our social development, our IRD, etc., to confirm identity. One of the things that we're really committed to as a country is to build off the foundational nature of this data, CRVS data, towards that key public infrastructure. So how do we use that for citizens to assert rather than share information, so they can engage with both public and private sector agencies using that foundational data, which is endorsed by the government? And how do we do that? That's a work in progress for us, but we think that's probably the next thing in terms of resilience and probably inclusivity for our nation, is to allow citizens to engage on their terms in ways which maintain that trust and confidence, which I think is the other key element of a system. We've been operating for 150, 160 years and built a lot of trust. We don't want to lose that. So privacy, security, those sort of protocols become really essential for maintaining that trust and confidence on an ongoing basis.
So trust and confidence are quite essential if you really want to use CRVS data as the foundation. What are the procedures in Turkey?
Our central civil registration system, SMERNIS, contains identity information that constitutes the civil registry of individuals. All changes in their personal status, such as birth, marriage, divorce, death, and other civil registry events. Family ties, as well as identity card, passport, driving license, and address information. In addition, the Digital Turkey portal, a government, has been developed in our country to ensure digital transformation in the public sector. The e-government system is based on MERNS and our identity sharing system. Many transactions and obtain documents without having to visit civil registry offices, such as address declaration, birth declaration, identity card applications for children under 15 years of age, obtaining documents such as civil registry extracts, requests for corrections in the civil registry. Citizens located in the earthquake zone who were unable to access their identity documents were able to obtain a temporary identity document and carry out their transactions via e-government based on the identity card information stored in central civil registration system. For our citizens living in the earthquake-affected areas, identity cards, passport, and driving license, informational family booklets, and other documents have been issued free of charge after an identity verification at our civil registry offices. Thank you.
The fees are quite an important aspect, and especially in the time of crisis, if somebody has to pay for no fault of theirs, it becomes quite it's a problem. I have seen this in multiple countries, and I can tell you not less than 25 to 30 countries. So Maldives, and while answering, if you could also, like tell us something about how do family registers and community testimonies help this process, especially in remote islands.
We don't have a national disaster management plan at the moment. It's on ongoing plan that the work has been going on, and I think this will be addressed. At the moment, within the Department of National Registration, they have a process called CARISA lost, which means CARISA is usually referred to as an emergency or disaster. Lost is if you have lost a document, identity document. So this has been addressed at the Department of National Registration. So during a disaster or crisis, if the identity document is being lost, and they can present themselves, and also there is a process that these documents can be issued, and also it's free of charge. We are having a plan to include this in the CRVS strategy as well, apart from the National Disaster Management Plan. In the islands, the same, it's the they have to present themselves to the city council or the island local council, and they can process this ID card and the birth certificate. And also it's during a disaster, if the central database is not been working and it's been interrupted, still we have a mechanism at the local office, at the local councils, and also in the health facility where they can store the data locally, and the web system is available because there are tools. For example, these remote islands is being connected through lease circuits. If the internet is down, they may not be able to communicate. However, we have measures in place where these data will be stored locally, and when the connection is available or when the central data is available, it will be fetched and uploaded. So nevertheless, I mean, later on that will be up to date in the central database.
So local councils and health facilities act as a backup. Yeah, perfect. So Dipesh, what are some of the good practices that you have seen in countries for the reissuance of lost and damaged civil documents?
Sure. Thank you, Bhaskar. In our experience in Asia and Pacific, we have seen that streamlined reissuance process is not only about replacing document actually, and we need to think about it very critically because it is about restoring back dignity, identity, and access to services for the affected individuals, especially children. You know, I was just thinking about this example. If I lose this, my ID, I can simply go into the reception and get another one, you know. It's so simple for others as well, though I have to show my passport, that's a different issue altogether. But that gravity of understanding would really help to see that these document and the issuance of information would be important. Citing some examples, the first one, the use of pre-disaster civil registration database with cloud backups are a good example. And let me cite the case out here for Indonesia, for instance, when the flood damaged the local civil registration office. The government, together with World Vision, were able to get some information. At least we had some information about the children who were in the community, and they were able to quickly retrieve the information, the household data, really trying to see that the uninterrupted services were provided. The another example I would like to cite from Vanuatu and in Bangladesh, which is the effective use of mobile registration, in which the civil registrars and social workers traveled to the evacuation centers and the temporary shelters with a very simplified form biometrics tool which fast-tracked the verification processes, and that were critical in the provisions that children received with the services, etc. And again, I would like to emphasize the point which has been from earlier as well, is the community-based verification mechanisms are essential. You know, the community is a setting in which there are various people engaged and living together. And let me cite the example for Nepal, in which the community-based volunteers who had certain records from our organization were able to quickly verify the information with the government, enabling access to information of those children and gathering the services. And last but not the least, again, how these second point or the reissuance of the certificate is embedded into the DRR processes, you know, into the national plans. It should not be when the disaster hit that you think about it. It should be something which should be automatically thought when you're thinking about the national disaster plan or national disaster preparedness plan or the community disaster plans as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipesh. So backup data centers, preferably at multiple sites or cloud-based systems, they are very, very critical. What I have seen in several countries in Africa and also in South Asia, that even if the civil registration laws, birth and death laws, allow for reissuance, but when it comes to actual implementation, there are several gaps. And I have also come across several instances of de facto discrimination. So you have provisions, but when it comes to actual implementation, the local civil registrars would not know about it, and that creates serious problems for those who are really, really affected by disasters. So let's go to the next question. What contingency plans exist for damaged or destroyed registration offices? Are there mobile or digital registration systems that can be deployed or utilized in the event of an emergency? I think all of you have mentioned about mobile or digital registration system, but nevertheless, we need some explicit answers. So, Ibrahim, would you like to go first? And do you use schools and health posts to serve as temporary CR points? I think you hinted about it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, in disasters and crisis, yeah, of course, mainly the schools used, because this is a public place where you have space for housing the affected families and individuals, house as well as health post. I think, as I have highlighted earlier, we are just having a national emergency operation plan. So in this plan address the CRVs, but not very specific. I think the upcoming national disaster management plan will have a section to address this, to have a contingency plan. Right now, we can't say that we have a full-fledged contingency plan in place in the Maldives to address. However, there are many things that in the pipeline to address if in case the registration office been affected, how this would be done. For example, in our plan now we are actually, as I have highlighted earlier, that we are having many silo systems which are not well integrated, even though we have digitalized the entire system, but still these systems need to talk each other. And in our plan, we are planning the Department of National Registration database, CRVS, as well as GEMON to be hosted in the National Data Center. And then the DR will be at the Department of National Registration. Right now, we don't have a DR for the CRVS. And then if the registration office been affected physically due to a disaster, always will have a backup at the National Data Center. And also we have planned to actually work on the third option, because Male is, the capital Male city is a very small place. It's just 2.5 square kilometers. So if the Department of National Registration, which is the registration office, has been affected, then there is a high probability that even the National Center for Information Technology, where the National Data Center is being housed, will be also affected. So the third option that we are working is actually there is another data center developed by the one of the telecom companies in a remote island, which is a tier 4 data center. So to host all the critical infrastructures. We consider CRV system in the future is going to be a critical infrastructure, including the digital ID. So all these critical infrastructures need to have DR. So that's what we are working, and the from the Digital Modis project, we are working on that. And also at the same time, there is a modern legal framework that we are working on. As I said, the data protection bill, digital ID bill, Modis 2.0 bill, which is the umbrella bill, which will actually safeguard the digital transformation of the Maldives. So as I said, even though we have up and running system, there are many things that we need to do. And going forward to build the resilience around the CR system, all these factors will be considered.
Thank you. Best of luck with these plans and legislative reforms. So Mr. Russell Barnett, your thoughts, your insights.
Similar to Ibrahim, we are spending a lot of time and effort on systems and duplicate systems, and we're investing in new CRVS systems over time, which will move us to the cloud. So that will be provide more security over time. As I said, we've spent a lot of time standardizing our processes so that any office can do any service to the customers as quickly as we can, and we build off that digital engagement quite regularly. So as I said, we've got 98% online. That's probably where we stand.
So digital engagement is the key. So Mr. Ibrahim Tashyapans, your views, what is happening in Turkey?
In our country, the Disaster and Emergency Management Presidency, affiliated with the Ministry of Interior, provides services in the field of disaster management and coordination. The Turkey Disaster Responses Plan, Disaster Management Plan, was created to ensure effective response to disasters based on the experiences gained from disasters and that have occurred in our country. Sports plans have been developed for each province in the event of disaster and emergencies affecting multiple provinces. Cooperation on a national level is provided by the Disaster and Emergency Management Presidency Council, while coordination at the local level is provided by the Provincial and Emergency Coordination Council and Provincial District Afat Centers. The necessary training and information sessions are being conducted locally within the framework of the Turkey Disaster Management Plan. For this reason, disaster and emergency management is integrated into a comprehensive structure together with other ministries. Our damaged civil registry offices are providing services in accordance with these plans. In addition, our Directorate General has a work continuity plan for our work continuity center. The mobile civil registry services vehicle can serve as a mobile civil registry office in disasters and emergencies with 5 transaction desk, 2 civil registry kiosk, and daily capacity of 400 transactions. During the earthquakes on February 6, our vehicles were sent to the Hatay, Antakya districts to provide civil registry services. In addition, in line with the 24/7 unmanned service delivery model developed in response to the pandemic, our Directorate General has developed kiosks, which are individual civil registry service kiosks. These kiosks provide a secure and encrypted network infrastructure that allows Turkish identity cards holders to carry out civil registry procedures in public areas without the need for civil registry offices or civil registry staff. Thank you.
So you mentioned quite a few. Coordination, training, integrated approach with other ministries, mobile registration units, emergency desks, and kiosks, etc. So thank you very much. So Dipesh, what are the recommended practices to insulate CR offices from damage or destruction? And you have been talking about the importance of like digital systems. So how can they play an important role in alleviating the situation during emergencies?
Sure.
Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. First, fantastic contribution coming from our panel in terms of various approaches on the question you have posed. From World Vision experience responding to earthquake, flood, conflict zone, displacement across Asia and the Pacific, we found that ability to withstand physical disruption and also ability to really see that there are virtual alternatives is critical for CRVS resilience. And let me cite a few examples from countries. One is, before I go to the example, one is establishing decentralized civic registration offices, especially in rural and disaster-prone areas, to avoid over-reliance in single administrative hub is an important one. The second one is, again, our colleagues from Russell, you mentioned about the importance of people, and it is importance of people in a sense that how we are equipping frontline workers, especially the registrars, with the emergency protocol, mobile kits, including portable device and biometric tools to be deployed, that would be another important one. And also trying to see that ensuring off-site and cloud-based data backups for civic registration records, which is updated regularly so that data is not lost when the infrastructure is compromised, is an important one. I gave you that example of Indonesia, in which the cloud backup really helped in terms of reaching and verification of communities and children. Same in Bangladesh, we were able to use digital record, which allowed swift verification for continued services on health. Another one is digital civic registration system also can help mitigate disruption, but only when it is designed for real world fragility. We, in many of the development world, and where I come from, Nepal as well, is there are no internet, so how you have a device which can take the data, but when you have internet connection can sync in. And there are examples of how we have done that, in which the device or the equipment that we use is simple, which is adaptive, but also which is functional. And without internet also, you are able to take data and sync in accordingly. Last but not the least, I'd also like to mention World Vision supported pilots of mobile biometric apps in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and in a recent cyclone in Vanuatu, we were able to work together with the government partners to support mobile registration through the process of really trying to get the information. And I would also mention just 2 more points before I hand it to you is, it is just the resilience issue is just not technical, okay? It is about relational issues as well, so how you really bond and maintain that relation is an important one. And where I come from and where constituency is, the culture of really preserving data and really securing information depends on a behavior change that needs to happen within the community. And whose registration are we talking about? We are talking about children. And again, I would quote the previous side event which took place. You know, children were so articulate in talking about their issues on behalf of others' issues as well. So how we bring children into these and young people into this discussion to see that they are empowered themselves, but also change behaviors of adult about the importance of data, not only in a normal setting, but also during the time of disaster would be an important consideration.
Perfect. So thank you for sharing so many country examples and also bringing this element of behavioral change, which is very, very important. And I completely agree. Like, resilience should not be seen only from the lens of digitalization or technology. So now we are moving to the last question. How is CRB's data used in national emergency planning, post-disaster assessment or recovery? What coordination mechanism exists between the CR authorities and national disaster management authorities? We can start with Turkey and then we'll go to New Zealand and Maldives. But please keep your response very short. Thank you.
Thank you. Since 2007, the address registration system has ensured that residential and other address information is maintained in a centralized electronic system, enabling the creation of a national address database. As part of the digital transformation of public services, the Special Address Registration System, MAX, project has been developed to support spatial and demographic analysis, smart city applications, and urban planning policies across various sectors. These include effective and rapid disaster and emergency response, law enforcement operation, crime prevention, transportation planning, healthcare and education services, as well as the implementation of smart city technologies. MAX enables address data to be recorded not only in verbal form, but also in map-based format using geographic coordinates. As of today, all verbal address data in the systems has been converted in a map-based infrastructure with coordinates assigned to each address. MAX ensures the standardized creation of address records, the regular updating of these records in the national address database, and the secure integration of addresses and location information with personal data. It also allows the secure sharing of address information with institutions authorized by legislation. Data sharing is facilitated through the integration of MAX with institutions such as the Ministry of Environment and Urbanization, the Ministry of National Education, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Industry and Technology, the Disasters and Emergency Management Presidency, the Turkish National Police, and the General Command Gendarmerie. Additionally, the real-time satellite images or visuals captured by unmanned aerial vehicles during disasters and emergencies are incorporated into the MAX system. This enables to rapid identification of affected buildings and individuals in large-scale disasters such as floods, earthquakes, landslides, and avalanches. On 6 February, the earthquake, the identification of collapsed or damaged structures and the individuals residing in them was a critical component of the search and rescue efforts. Team from AFAD and our Directorate General of Civil Registration and Citizenship utilized MAX data in identifying affected buildings and residents with registered addresses, and supported the coordination of rescue operations by delivering this information along with precise location data of ground teams. Damage assessment studies were carried out by the Ministry of Environment Urbanization using building information recorded in MAX. based on the damage evaluations transferred to Max effort, facilitated the distribution of earthquake relief payments to affected citizens. The establishment of container and tent cities was supported, and address registration for these temporary shelter was made possible through the system. On the other hand, through awareness and the identity sharing system, support was provided to relevant institutions of identify citizens who lost their lives in the earthquake. Identified deaths were promptly registered in the civil registry by our directorate and district civil registry directorates. Deaths caused by the earthquake were identified by prosecutors appointed by the Ministry of Justice and then forwarded to the Directorate General of Civil Registration and District Civil Registry Directorates for registration. Deaths that occurred in healthcare institutions were registered directly by the health institutions. Relatives of deceased citizens were identified and earthquake relief payment were facilitated by AFAD. Although some civil registry offices in the earthquake zone were damaged, services continued without interruption thanks to teams composed of civil registry personnel and volunteers from unaffected regions. These teams operated from safe areas, ensuring continuity of service. Additionally, a mobile civil registration services vehicle was dispatched to the disaster area to support the region. Thank you.
So many excellent steps and measures. Thank you very much. New Zealand.
Thank you. I think Tapesh is right, actually, that one of the things that we've invested a lot of time and effort into is data standards and data quality. So we've reinvigorated our National Statistics Oversight Group to ask the question, what data do we need? What quality do we need to get it to? And what's missing, which is actually one of the key things that we need to develop. So we're spending quite a bit of time actually working through what is that needed in BAU for business as usual type activities, but also what do you want to do and need in an emergency. So that's quite an effort for us. The second thing that we're investing time and effort as a country on is interoperability between our systems, between systems that I operate and systems that are operated by other agencies, public and private. So how do we safely share, whilst maintaining that trust and confidence which I talked about earlier, how do we safely share that information in ways that work for our citizens to make better decisions and get access to those services quickly?
Perfect. So interoperability and reconfiguration of your data need. Perfect. Maldives, please keep it short. Huh?
Yeah, I'll make it very brief. Yes, CRVS data is crucial for disaster management planning, during disaster, post-disaster, and coordination effort. Right now, the Disaster Management Authority system is not been integrated with the CRVS system. There's an ongoing negotiation and talk with the Department of National Registration and the National Disaster Management Authority to integrate these two systems through an API integration. So soon this will be achieved. I think when we are talking about CRVS, it's not only about the citizens, right? The foreigners who are working in the country is very important. In the Maldives, our population is around 400,000 plus, and we have 250,000 expatriate workers. Out of that, like a significant portion is being undocumented. So the government is having an initiative to work that, because inclusion is very important for this. So the government is having an initiative to collect all the biometric data of the foreigners, including the expatriate workers. So they have already achieved 80% and still going on. So before the end of this year, hopefully they'll achieve that. So I think, as I said, like interoperability is very important for this kind of operation and coordination work with the systems. So as a result, the Modis 2.0 vision, one of the key pillars is the interoperability of the government databases. So hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be able to achieve this significant task. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Dipesh, you have only 1 minute to answer this question.
Sure.
Can you cite one country that utilizes or has utilized CRVS data in emergency planning, post-disaster assessment, etc.?
No, I think I'll give the example of Nepal. After 2015 earthquake, I was personally involved, in which children were involved in terms of post-disaster risk reduction assessment, which led into donor processes, but more importantly, through the programs and projects that we have in the various communities where it was impacted the most. And even after the after 2015 earthquake, there are a lot of examples in which the government together with us, we're utilizing the information that we have to reissue documents, to plan the post-disaster aspects of the work, etc., really preventing many of the trafficking and separation which had happened. And I think this gives a very good example of the civil society and government working together. I would love to see more example in days to come about the whole businesses and private sector coming into it. I don't have that example now, but I think those are two things which I, from Nepal's experience, I can share that has really worked well.
So thank you very much. We have only 5 minutes, and I don't want to come between you and what is waiting for you outside, which is more interesting and exciting. So we will have to skip the Q&A, and I'm going to the concluding round. So please, we would like to have your wrap-up remarks, very short one, maybe like half a minute each, and we can start with you.
No, let me close by saying that when children are counted, they are protected. When their identity is recognized, even in crisis, they can access and claim their rights to rebuild their life, and let's not forget them.
I think for any nation, CRVS is the primary single source of truth. However, there are other foundational databases, like in the Maldives, we have the work permit or expect database, and also we have the other visas, other than the work visas, other visas, which have been developed by the immigration. So the immigration visa database. So we have identified these 3 foundational database when it comes to identifying a person, whether it's through the CR system or the digital identity. So we are working on this and integrating and relying on these 3 foundational database in moving forward. And this will be key for the digital transformation of the Maldives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. New Zealand.
Thank you. Look, I talked a lot about people, process, and technology. Those are probably the things that every country is looking at when they're updating their CRVSs. I'd add a fourth, which is relationships. So we're spending a lot of time with our Indigenous community in terms of getting a cultural perspective on the information that they would like us to steward on their behalf. And also, I think one of the big insights for me in this role has been engagement with my Pacific Island cousins, who are truly innovative in the way that they deal with hard-to-reach communities, starting from a relatively low base, but doing things deliberately, collectively, and we can learn a lot from our Pacific cousins. So as a country, we are looking to build relationships with those other people and other countries so that we can learn a wee bit more from them.
Turkey, you have 1 minute.
As a result, the Directorate General of Civil Registration has become one of the cornerstones of technological transformation in our country, going beyond the performance of conventional civil registry tasks. With a modern service approach, it continues to operate as an institution with a robust infrastructure and open forward-looking communication structure, embracing technological advancement and integrating them into its systems. Lastly, I would like to extend my gratitude and respects to all those who contributed to the organization of this meeting, which provides an opportunity to share information about our services, especially to the ESCAP representatives and participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's time to thank our panelists for their exceptional, thoughtful reflections and lived experiences. Today's discussion has underscored something I have witnessed firsthand over the years, that a resilient CRBS system isn't built overnight. It is built through political will, innovation, and above all, compassion for the people it serves. Whether it is restoring legal identity after a tsunami, registering a child born in an emergency shelter, or tracking excess mortality during a pandemic, CRBS systems anchor us in the data we need and the dignity we owe. As we move forward, let's continue this exchange of ideas and action across borders, sectors, and technologies, because when CRBS systems are resilient, so are our communities. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone else. Have an exciting evening.
Thank you to our moderator and to each of the speakers for your valuable insights and contributions. Your perspectives on building resilient CRVS systems and navigating post-disaster challenges are truly appreciated. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we shall proceed with the statements for agenda item 3 tomorrow morning. Thank you for your active participation throughout the day. But before we close for today's session, I would like to hand over to the Secretary for some housekeeping announcements. Thank you, and over to you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, before we conclude for the day, I'm delighted to share that the Royal Thai Government, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, and Vital Strategies are generously hosting a special reception and publication launch titled Ending Statelessness Together. This event is for all delegates and will begin immediately after we finish today in the Delegates' Lounge on the second floor of the UN Conference Centre right in front of this hall. This is a wonderful opportunity to connect informally, continue the day's rich conversations, and show our appreciation to the Royal Thai Government, UNHCR, and Vital Strategies for their kind hospitality and support. We look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I hope all participants will attend the reception that's just outside this door. Thank you again to all delegations for their participation today. The meeting is adjourned.